Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is Sonny Washington, the CEO of Ardusat. Sonny, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, it's entirely our pleasure. We're grateful that you would make time for this. So, Sonny, give us a quick overview of what Ardusat is.
Sure. So Ardusat is a made-up word. It's a Promethean of it's a mashup of words of Arduino and satellites, and we are a STEM education company. And what we focus on is getting students interested in science, technology, engineering, and math subjects by connecting them to space. One of the unique offerings that we have is we have a partnership with a satellite company based out in the Bay Area, and they build and launch CubeSats, which are tiny satellites that go up to very powerful satellites that go up into space, and we allow for students to run experiments on these satellites.
That's just wonderful. It's so exciting to think about all the cool stuff that kids can do today. Tell us a little bit about what kinds of experiments the kids are doing. We want to know more about sending their experiments into space.
Yeah, so, as an adult, I don't think I have quite as creative mind as the kids do have. So I'll give you some examples of some of the experiments that students suggested to us. So one was submitted by a Boy Scout troop, and there's this great garbage patch in the ocean that has just collected of just plastic and garbage just based on the way the tides have come in. And so what they want to do is they want to measure how big it is. They estimate it to be about as big as a state, and they want to see if they can collect heat data from these sensors that are on the satellite to see if this garbage patch is actually getting bigger or smaller, or if it's just staying the same. We really don't know much about it. Another experiment is a school out in Brazil. They have an ozone hole above them, and so they wanted to measure and see how big that ozone hole is and see if there is anything they could do to maybe better educate people about some of the dangers of living beneath the ozone hole. So those are some of the experiments that we've had submitted to us that we'll be running this year.
That is so cool. And how do you get that experiment, how did you get that into space? Walk us through this process in a bit more detail so that we understand how it goes from the idea that a scout troop has to actually being measured by a satellite in space.
Sure. So through our partnership with Spire, they build and launch these CubeSats, and they've built and launched 4 of these satellites, and on each of these satellites they have what they call an education payload, and it's a tiny board with sensors that are very common, ones that we all have in our cell phones. So it'd be like an accelerometer, a gyro, a temperature sensor, everyday sensors that are on there, and on each and every one of the satellites that they send up is this payload, which is used for the student experiments. They built and launched 4. They have 20 going up in the next year, and their goal is to get about 100 satellites over the next few years. As far as the students sending the experiments, they basically would tell us their hypothesis, the sensors that they would need access to, and then the number of times that they need to collect that data and the location where that data needs to be collected from. The nice thing is, because we have this partnership with Spire, they're bearing all the costs of the expensive costs of building and launching these satellites, and so we get the benefit of accessing ones that are already in orbit.
Oh, wow, that is so cool. So cool. And have you actually completed any complete cycles yet where you've had kids propose experiments and had them completed?
We're actually working with the first group now. So we worked with a group of about 15 teams that have submitted their experiments. So we're working through the hypothesis. We've already collected temperature data from space, which is fascinating for us to look at, looking at the location and getting that data. And we anticipate running many more experiments in the fall time.
That'll be so much fun. So much fun. So, what are the other activities, or how are you going about building your student population that are participating with you on this program?
Yeah, so our focus is really on the school market. We think that we've had quite a bit of interest from that maker community and after-school clubs, but we really want to start working with the teachers and getting this in the classroom. And the reason is we think that that's what's going to make impact on changing the number of students that pursue science and technology degrees. And that's our ultimate goal, is to you know, make science exciting and make it interesting. Instead of just learning it from a book, do an experiment, test a hypothesis, just, send your code to space. And so that's what we're trying to do. So we provide a fully fleshed out program where the teachers get a curriculum, they get professional development, they get support resources, so that they can implement it in their classroom.
This is very cool. Sunny, why is this important to you? Why do you care about STEM education?
Well, my background is in education technology. I've spent the last 14 years of my career really seeing the coolest and most interesting and sometimes even stupid tools that our education institutions are sold. And I also have an 8-year-old daughter. And one of the frustrating things for me is she would come home and she would do her homework, and I couldn't believe that, with all these neat things that I had seen out in the market, she was still learning math the same way I did 30 years ago. It's things like, in Utah, where we're located, they don't teach science until 4th grade. And one of the things that my, 3rd grade daughter asked for Christmas was a science kit. And it makes me sad inside that we're not capturing the interest of the kids when they have it. And for some reason, if you look at the number of girls that are interested in science, it's about 74% when they go into high school, and less than 20% of them go on to pursue STEM careers after high school. So something is telling me that in that process, we managed to squash that interest because we didn't make it interesting to them. They didn't want to be the only girl in the class, so they were discouraged from taking it, or they felt like it was just too hard and it didn't apply to what was something with their everyday life and making it interesting for them. So we want to fix that, and we think space is a great way because there's this universal interest of what's happening beyond our Earth. But then, there's a lot of different applications as to the type of data that they're collecting from space that is really applicable and interesting to us, in the classroom.
Oh, that's cool. That's just wonderful. And now, Sunny, you've really had some great success in your career, in your life. You've done some wonderful things. Everyone who's watching the show has one thing in common, and that is they want to do something good. They want to have more impact. And I wonder if you would just give us one tip that we could use to, in fact, have more impact, to do more good.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you're passionate about something, then find a way to make it happen. So for me, I'm passionate about education, and therefore I pursued careers in education. But I knew that, the last company I came from, I was employee number 7. We grew to over 500, incredibly successful in a short manner of time, and that was fun. But I realized that my circle of influence and what I could contribute was getting smaller and smaller, and so I was looking for that next opportunity where I could make that influence. And I thought, really, maybe it's just me joining the PTA. And my circle of influence is, my local community, and that would be great. But when I saw this opportunity to, where we could literally impact, millions of kids and their perception of science and technology, we find a way to make that happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, Sonny, I'm sure there are a lot of people who will see this and want to get involved. They want to get engaged with you. They're going to want their kids in the program. They're going to want to get their classroom in the program. Tell us more about how people can find out more and how they can engage with you to participate.
Sure. So you can obviously come to our website, which is just rgsat.com, and you can take a look at the content resources there. But one of the things that we are very much in favor of this sharing and open community, and so if you run an experiment with your child or run an experiment in your classroom and want to share that data, we want to see it. We want to highlight it, and we want other classrooms, maybe in other countries like China, to run that same experiment and share that data as well. And any creative ways that you have approached science, we want to hear about it. The nice thing about being a new company is we can be very agile, and we're not set in our ways yet, and we don't perceive to think that we know everything, and so we want to learn from people and find out what those best practices are. Another way is just if you do have a child and want to have them run this program in their schools, let us talk to the teacher. We've got all sorts of free curriculum resources out there that they have access to, and so we would love to share that.
Fantastic. Well, Sonny, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. We've really enjoyed the opportunity to get to know you better and to learn more about Ardusat. We certainly wish you every success in growing your business.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
All righty. Let's do some good.